In our fast-paced world, many of us struggle with overthinking and worry that leaves us feeling overwhelmed or stuck. In this podcast, we will hear stories of successful individuals and have conversations and ways to reach our true potential by embracing every micro detail of our identity, especially the flaws that make us unique. This is your host, Maria Grace Wolk. I'm a Filipino-American entrepreneur, psychotherapist, and mom of 2 boys. And my mission is to amplify diverse perspectives and experiences and inspire your journey to wellness and fulfillment. Hello and welcome to Own Your Journey. This is your host, Maria Grace. My guest for today is Sarah Sanders. She is a licensed psychotherapist. She is a mom of 2, an entrepreneur with a thriving practice here in California, and she is founder of the Centered with Sarah coaching program. Sarah's passion is helping women, especially mothers, learn how to look inward and tune into their needs so they can find as much joy in their motherhood journey while rediscovering who they are. So, Sarah, thank you for being here with me today. I am truly excited.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Yeah, I'm Sarah. Nice to be on here. Thank you so much, Grace. I am here in California and do have a private practice that is always full. And I wanted another way to reach more women and have a broader impact. And so I started this separate business with coaching. So it's Centered with Sarah coaching. And then I can reach more people and help more moms. And yeah, I'm really, really excited.
I love that. I love that you started that because it's so needed. Okay, so I want to start us off with a snippet from a series you wrote where you said, quote, "I was never the little girl who always wanted to be a mom when I grow up. I was actually quite the opposite. I instead wanted a grad degree and to become a professional people helper. Don't get me wrong, I love children and always have, especially babies, but I didn't want any of my own because I thought I had to pick. Be either a career woman or a mother." End of quote. So I wanted to read this because I, as well as I'm sure lots of other women who's listening out there, resonate with this. You know, from hearing other moms talk about how they had to give up their careers to raise their children, not to mention the society's crazy expectation of being a woman, let alone being a mother, it really sucks that, you know, if you're a goal-oriented, high-achieving woman, the message is that you can't do both. You'd have to pick one or the other. Can you say more about your thoughts when you wrote this?
Yeah, I've always loved helping people and I love learning. I love trainings. I love school. And when I was younger, I saw these moms that seemed like they were always meant to be mothers. And I didn't feel that. I didn't resonate with that. And so I thought I had to choose and, was basically deciding that I wouldn't have kids because I figured I probably shouldn't or couldn't, and I had to pick. But then after I got married, a special little baby was born, and I saw that bond between him and his mother that it just melted everything. And I was like, I wonder if I could have both. I wonder if I can help people and love to learn and have all these things that I've always loved to do, but also have kids and have this special bond and this relationship, for myself. And so, the journey to becoming a mother was a lot longer and harder than I had anticipated with infertility and miscarriages and everything in there. And I like to be really open about my story and the journey because every single mother has their own unique journey. And I think so much of like when I was a little kid and I'm looking at these mothers, we get this idea of this is what motherhood is like, or this is what it takes to be a mother. And I think we discount ourselves a lot. And so part of what I think is really empowering and to empower women and mothers is to share your own story and how that played out for you and what that looks like for you individually. So I like to be very open about what my experience has been and what the struggle is and how hard it is to be a mother, and just normalize that, because it is really hard no matter what the situation
Mhm.
is.
And no one will argue with you there because it is really hard being a mom. And what would be good is, to be able to have that genuine choice whether to work or stay at home without worrying about the stigma that's attached to it, which means, having an economy that is that pays well enough that both parents don't need to work, or having a job that is really supportive with just offering flexible hours for working moms. And I also agree on the part where you said, everybody has their own journey. And it's important that we share these stories so we can normalize the struggle of, what we go through being a mom, because not a lot of moms talk about it because somehow maybe they feel ashamed that they're not doing it right. And of course, social media plays a huge role in the comparison mindset where we see other parents, feeding their kids organic food and keeping such a perfect and spotless home. I mean, some of these things that we see are probably staged and not real, but it's easy to kind of just fall into that comparison trap and feel like you're not doing you and feel like you're doing everything wrong. So just kind of reminding yourself about that when you're, scrolling through social media, that we all have a different story, like you said. So tell us your journey, your mom journey.
By the time I had my son, I thought, well, I'm well prepared. I have 2 degrees in psychology. I've studied all these books and, you know, scholarly articles, and I'm going to be you know, well prepared. And then 36 hours of labor, 3 hours of pushing,
Oh
and
my
this
God.
human comes out, and I'm like, what did I sign up for? Like, the needs are constant. And I was constantly working to meet his needs and thinking eventually, when he's good and
Hmm.
he's not upset or he's happy or he's fed, and you're changing all the diapers and the nursing and the sleepless nights, and I thought, then I'll take care of myself, then I'll meet my needs. And that day wasn't coming. I wasn't able to kick my feet up
No.
and relax. And by the time he was 1, I remember just thinking, how many more years can I go? Like, I feel like I've worn myself into the ground.
Hmm.
I'm exhausted. I've lost weight. I'm not eating well. I'm not sleeping. How do I do this? And so my I feel like my goal in life, my life's mission, is to help other mothers find that balance between meeting their kids' needs and taking really good care of their kids. Because I did take really good care of my son. I think we all
Hmm.
take really good care of our children. And at the same time, we have needs. We have to take care of ourselves as well. And that's a really hard struggle for a lot of mothers. And there's practical things, but there's also an internal mindset that we have, that was the part that I never knew. Before you're a mother, you think, oh, this is how I'm going to do things, or this is how it's going to be. And you have no idea, until that little person comes into your life. You don't know exactly how it's going to be and how hard.
Hmm.
And it was just a huge struggle for me. So I have a lot of compassion and empathy, and um I would say a fire burning in my soul to help other moms, to support them in that, because it's the hardest job in the world.
Yeah.
I feel like you can probably relate to this as a therapist, that people are like, wow, you're a therapist? That must be so hard. And I try not to laugh, because I'm like, no, being a mother is hard. Like, there's a emotional and psychological toll with being a
Hmm.
therapist, but being a mother is so much harder than anything else I've ever done in life.
100%. I completely agree with you. And yes, being a therapist is hard because we do have to deal with, vicarious trauma. But being a parent, being a mom is a whole nother level. And I'm sure a lot of listeners agree with you as well. And I do want to point out that, just because a person is a therapist, right, you would assume that they know all the tools and are familiar with the mental health aspect of it all. But when you are in such a sleep deprived mode, and you're doing everything for the first time and you're stressing out because you just want to make sure that you keep this human alive, it takes a huge emotional toll on you, your mental health, your physical health. Not all kids
Mhm.
are the same, not all
Mhm.
needs are the same.
Mhm.
So it's
Mhm.
yeah, it's definitely a struggle. And what have you noticed is the most common struggle for mothers?
Yeah, I would say the most common struggle when they're trying to focus on themselves
Hmm.
is to put their needs as a priority because we are socialized from
Hmm.
the time we're born. I call it to be quiet and pretty and to not take up much space. And so by the time we, get pregnant or have a baby, we're so used to focusing on other people and giving to other people and
Hmm.
really um valued and prized for being selfless and all of those things that are great qualities, but not to the extreme and the detriment of not
Hmm.
taking care of yourself. And then, even when you're pregnant, what is the focus? Oh, how far along are you? Oh, how's the baby? Oh, do you know the gender? Everything's very
Is
baby
that the baby?
oriented. And then go to the hospital, or you even, having a home birth, the attendant, everybody's still focused on the baby. And so I'm a huge advocate for women hiring doulas before they, in that process to give birth, because you need somebody who's devoted to you and for your needs, because everything is the baby. And then the baby, comes out,
Hmm.
or even, with adoption, if you've adopted, it's still the focus is on the baby. And so moms really get pushed to the side, and we're already internally pushing our needs to the side, and then society's pushing our needs to the side. And you go back to work when the baby is 6
Hmm.
weeks or 8 weeks, and you go back to the daily grind. And so this barrier of really seeing that we even have a need is huge. And I feel like that's one of the hugest barriers that mothers have.
And what about your significant other? Like, how does this impact your relationship?
Yeah, it's hard because if you don't even know that you have a need and you're not even aware of that, how can you communicate that to somebody else?
That's true.
And our partners are not going to read our minds. They're not going to
Hmm.
know, oh, she needs an extra glass of
Hmm.
water, or she's, needs to kick her feet up. They might be able to guess. And depending on the relationship, they might be more nurturing towards
Hmm.
us and they already have that support there, but they can't read our minds. And so if we don't even know we have a need, how is anybody else going to know that we have a need?
Right. And that's such a good point because that's when sometimes relationship can suffer, right? Because the
Mhm.
communication isn't there. And how are you able to ask for what you need if you don't know what it is or you can't verbalize it because you aren't sure yourself?
Yeah. So if we don't know we have a need, or we feel bad that we have a need, I remember thinking when my son was really little that I shouldn't have needs because I should be selfless. I should be giving.
Hmm.
If I have a need and I'm meeting that need, am I taking something from him? So there's really this internal mind shift that you need to be aware of it's not selfish to meet your own needs, and there needs to be a lot of focus and attention put on your needs so that you can give to the other person, give to the child out of that
Hmm.
abundance. And what they say on the airplane, if something happens to the plane, put your oxygen mask on first before your
Hmm.
child's. I feel like we're so socialized to think, oh, we got to meet the child's needs. We got to meet the child's
Right.
needs over and over and over. And it's like, no, we have to put the oxygen mask on first.
And can I just quickly add how important this is? Because I know that even though we've heard this before, we've seen it on social media and we've heard it time and time again. The truth is, many of us, our first instinct is to take care of our baby and not ourselves. So if you're not aware that you're doing this, that you're, not putting your gas mask on first, and you're extremely exhausted and you're sick and you're trying to function, you're more prone to making careless mistakes or having an accident. And you're actually putting, both you and your child at a higher risk.
Yeah, yeah, that definitely plays into that. And so, number one, when I had mentioned being aware that you have a need is really the
Hmm.
first step to say, do I even need something or what do I need? And you
Right.
have to be tuned into that yourself. And then the second one of a mindset shift is really, um, believing that only the kids' needs are the priority. And that whole
Hmm.
concept that no, both of our needs are a priority. I have to meet my own needs and I have to meet theirs. So it's not just the kids. And then number three, what I believe is the mama mindset shift too is that it's okay to feel bad that we're not meeting the kids' needs or that we met our need. And so there's this shame and there's this guilt. And so I work with a lot of moms that have just given birth or their children are still young and they're like, well, I have this girls trip, but I feel bad I shouldn't go on it, or I feel bad that
Hmm.
I went on it, or or my sister wants to take me out to dinner, or whatever it is. It can be the smallest thing of I just want to go to bed earlier or something, and it's
Hmm.
like then you feel shame and guilt and almost like we're more comfortable with this martyr, idea than being like, no, that's not okay. Like we don't need to feel guilt about it. We need to put our needs as a priority. And so those big shifts are ones that I had to wrestle with and make sense of. And still on a daily basis, sometimes have to be like, okay, have I eaten, enough food today? Or have I sat down and, taken a break? And so really just still being in tune for that for myself as much as I practice that. I feel like it's this continual fighting against that the kids' needs are the priority and that is where it should stay.
I'm definitely guilty of, having that mom guilt. I just remember, sitting at brunch with my friends and having those thoughts of, oh, I should be home. He might look for me, and it goes on and on, right? Until of course the mimosa arrives. But when I get back from a timeout with friends, even for just a couple of hours, I started to notice that I am more relaxed, I am more energized, I'm in a better mood, more focused to be present with them. So then I realized this is good. Like, I need to do this more often for my own mental health. And so I can be more at my best for my kids when I give myself a little break. Right. So I
Mhm.
love that. And I love that you mentioned that you do a mental health check in when you say, oh, did I eat?
Mhm.
Did I take a shower? Did I, just to
Mhm.
make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because you're right. You need to
Mhm.
advocate for yourself and prioritize yourself. Those are
Mhm.
really great tips. What are some ways that moms can maneuver the guilt?
Yeah, guilt comes up a lot in general, especially mom guilt.
Hmm.
And what I tell people is almost taking a mindfulness approach where you can watch that guilt go by like you're watching a cloud and
Hmm.
not try to fight against it. Because if you go, okay, I'm not going to feel guilty anymore, I'm really going to work on this, and then you start feeling guilty, you're going to beat yourself up and feel bad that you're feeling guilty when you're trying not to feel guilty. It's just this
Hmm.
whole cycle. And so, being really in tune with what your thoughts are and how
Hmm.
what you're thinking and how you're feeling about it is key, because then this is still something that I struggle with, or this is something I'm getting better at. But how will you know if you're not tuned in to what you're thinking or feeling?
Yeah, I think that's key. I think knowing
Mhm.
what that guilt is about, right? Like really
Mhm.
being self-aware and really digging deep. What does that guilt mean for me? It
Mhm.
means, okay, I'm going out with my friends, which usually means, does that mean I'm a bad mother? So then
Mhm.
you kind of look into that and
Mhm.
rationalize it. Are you a bad
Mhm.
mother?
Mhm.
Does this make you a bad mom if you take some time
Mhm.
out to take care of yourself? And the answer is
Yeah.
no.
Right, and really letting yourself sit with that instead of trying to push
Mhm.
it to the side because we don't like feeling guilt. We
Mhm.
don't like feeling shame, but if we push it away, it's not going to actually go away. It's going to fester and get worse. But if we let ourselves realize that we're feeling it and sit with it, then we can go talk to somebody. We can talk to a partner, we can talk to a friend, we can talk to our therapist or a
Right.
coach or a mentor and say, "Hey, this is something that I'm struggling with or I feel guilty a lot." And, we have to find those supportive people that will really speak into us and let us, vent or whatever and not pass judgment. Because the last thing we need is to
Mhm.
share that we feel like a bad mom to somebody and they're like, "Oh, yeah,
You
you
were.
shouldn't have done that."
Yeah, because it goes back to society, right? The expectations from
Hmm.
society and from what you see on social media, the comparison mindset that you feel like, you know, society expects you to be home with your kids because that's what makes you a good mom. If you're out and
Hmm.
about, who's really judging you,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah. And what I found is a lot of times, if somebody's struggling with shame and guilt for themselves, they are judging themselves harshly, but they also are tending to judge other people. And then they're
Mm-hmm.
thinking those people are judging them. So when we start working through how much we're actually judging ourselves or others, we're going to
Mm-hmm.
realize that the judgment is slowly going away. Because if I'm going to judge you for, hey, she's doing such and such, and I would never do that as a mother, if that's trying to,
Right.
make myself feel good, I'm judging you, but I'm also going to think that you're going to be judging me. And so that's a really key awareness aspect as well is, are you judging other people? Are you trying to make yourself feel better by what you are doing or you're not doing? But that's feeding into that guilt and shame and that judgment cycle
Yeah.
as it is.
Right. That's when the boundaries kind of sets in
Mhm.
and you have to feel secure about your own parenting
Mhm.
skills and really who
Mhm.
you are as a parent.
Mhm. Like you said earlier, every baby or every kid has a different level of needs, but every mother has a different level of needs. And a lot
Correct.
of times my clients are like, I don't feel refreshed after the kids nap or the baby goes down. I need another break or, what's wrong with me, And so really letting ourselves be okay with having a different level of need as a mother compared to other mothers. That's where we don't want to compare, but it's okay to be like, maybe my kid has high needs, but maybe I have high needs. Maybe I am pretty introverted. I need a lot of time alone, or I'm, touched out or sound is bothering me, and so I need to put in more self care so that I can meet my needs.
Yeah. And that's a great segue to self care because you talk about internal self care. So tell us about
Mhm.
this.
So, a lot of times we think of self care as getting our nails done or getting the massage or going shopping, and it's a lot of external things. And so, when I refer to internal self care or inner self care, it's really the concept of a deeper wellness for ourselves,
Mhm.
for who we are inside. And yeah, all the external things are fine. And if that's what fills your cup back up, might as well, go crazy, do it all. But there's also this sense of what's going on inside for us, what hobbies or what activities, or how do we care for ourselves inside. And so a lot of my clients will spend time scrolling on their phones when they have a few minutes of downtime. And then they're like, I don't feel any better after seeing everybody's perfect life on social media. And so I encourage them to go back to, what do you enjoy doing? What is that internal awareness that you um that you need to tap into to spend time doing something, or even what are you thinking or what are you feeling? We discount our thoughts a lot, and the way that we're viewing something can make a seemingly um difficult situation feel impossible, and it's really not, but the way we're looking at it. So really being in touch with our mind and our feelings, and do we need to talk to somebody, do we need to reach out for support? That's all the internal stuff. You can't find that with getting your nails done. um
No,
there's just going to be a
no.
difference there.
Right. Although getting your nails done does make me feel good.
Which is awesome.
But you're right. It's not the lasting effect that you want. And you also mentioned about, and I thought this was really interesting, disconnecting your self-worth from your kids' behavior. I thought
Mhm,
that's brilliant,
mhm,
because I know attaching our self-worth to how our children behave is such an
mhm,
easy trap to fall into. So can
mhm.
you speak a little bit more about that?
Yeah, it goes back to socialization again, where we're used to being rated or measured or achievement. And so we really get the sense that what's going on around us has to do with us and how well we're doing and how good we are. And so if our kids melting down in the store, it's like, oh, I must be doing something wrong, I must be not using the right technique, or not,
Or it's a reflection
um
of you, you're
yeah, it's
saying?
somehow a reflection of us. and
Mhm.
and I think we all struggle with that to a certain extent, but some of us, I think, struggle with that more than others, if we're used to you know, working really hard at something and then being like, oh, I did that, I achieved that.
Mhm.
And so that achievement mentality can really, bite us in the butt when we're thinking about our kids, because they are their own person. They're a whole separate human than us. And we can't take all of that on our shoulders and, carry that weight.
Right, right. No, I completely agree. And I have to admit, I have been guilty of that, before I've done all the mindfulness work. But
Hmm.
I just
Hmm.
remember being a new parent, attaching my self-worth to how my children behaves is so easy. It's like an easy trap
Hmm.
to fall into, because I just remember this field trip. Like my son was in preschool, so I would help chaperone, and there would be other parents there, right? And the preschool that my son went to was not as diverse. And I'm Filipino and I'm married to a white man. So my kids are biracial and they present more white than Filipino. And there's another Asian little boy who was running around and not following direction. And
Hmm.
this other mom came up to me and said, "You should probably make sure your kid stays in line."
Oh, wow.
And I looked at her, and I'm not sure what made me more furious. If it was because I was being accused that my child is misbehaving, who was not even my kid, but also
Yeah.
the fact that I had to tell her my son was right in front of me. And
Wow.
in her eyes, my son didn't belong to me. So, I mean, that's a whole nother thing about,
Yeah.
race and racial microaggressions. It's an easy and obvious mistake. I get it, but it's still very hurtful. But just
Mhm.
not to go off tangent, going back to that, I think well, I was initially annoyed for the first reason of being accused that my child was misbehaving. So
Mhm.
that I
Mhm.
automatically felt that it was an attack
Mhm.
on how I am as a parent, and
Mhm.
or how I parent my kids, and how
Mhm.
I am as a mother. Can you
Yeah,
react?
yeah, yeah, for sure, because this person is thinking this kid, say they were your child, it's assuming that you can do something to stop your child. So because you're not, there's something wrong with you, or
Right. Like
because
I'm
your
just sitting
kids
there watching him.
yeah, or because your kid's running around, something's wrong with you that your kid's running around. It's
Right.
just, yeah, once we break it down, it's preposterous, but we feel this all the time. And
Mhm.
I remember when my son was first born, I got the question all the time, "Oh, is he sleeping through the night? Oh, is he," all these things about him. And I remember being like, I know he's not. And what's wrong with me that he's not, And so we get these questions over and over and over that it's almost like, can you control that? You need to fix this. And oh, okay, let me do this, and you're a new mom and you're working so hard and you're already exhausted and sleep deprived. And, those questions and those words and that criticism from other people is going to hit even harder,
Right.
with being in that position and that new role as a mother. And yeah. And also, the other one to add is boundaries. We underestimate boundaries so much. And there's the external boundaries of telling somebody, hey, don't cross this line. But we also need to have these internal boundaries where maybe we have this boundary with this person, but we don't necessarily have to tell them. We
Mhm.
can, have this boundary inside. So it's really just that inner sense of what's going on inside of us, not just outside what we can do.
Can you give us an example of that?
So an example that comes up a lot with my clients is their relationship with their mother and their children. And so if your mother has, say, a different parenting style than you have, you might have to put up an external boundary with her and say, hey, we don't parent that way. And so, this is what we expect from you when you are interacting with our child or you're watching our child or whatever it is. You might have to tell them, hey, this is this explicit boundary. But an internal boundary would be knowing that your mom is different with her parenting or with her ideas with your child. And so just going into that next time that you're meeting with her and knowing that, hey, this is going to be more challenging or this is difficult for me, that's going to be an internal boundary for you to just know for yourself of like, what do I need to take care of myself? Do I need to have, some downtime before we go and hang out? Or am I going to need some downtime after? Like, what's going on inside of me? Or do we need to, if I'm tuned into myself, do we need to leave early? So there's these external boundaries, but there's also
Mhm.
these internal boundaries.
Yeah, and these are also helpful and valuable information. I'm so glad that I'm talking about this with you. I know that you're starting and launching a new program. Do you want to
Mhm.
tell us about that?
Yeah. So the new program is called Centered Mama. And in the program, what we're going to be doing is really doing a deep dive in each of the three areas that I've learned are very crucial for meeting your needs and finding yourself as a mother and really enjoying motherhood more. And so we do a deep dive on the body and what does that actually look like, and your brain, what are you thinking, and your boundaries, who do you need to put up boundaries with, or how does this need to look in your life, and really seeing how those fit together and
Mhm.
coming up with a unique tailored plan for you, because all of our motherhood stories and our lives are very different. What works for me is not going to work for you. And so really coming up with how do you meet your need, or what does this look like, or what are these barriers that we need to overcome, or to how do we problem solve this. So it's a 3-month program where we're really going to be going into depth on all three of those, but it's going to be in a group. So we're going to have group coaching every week, and it'll be recorded if somebody can't make it, but lessons that are pre-recorded that you can watch on your own time, that are short and really action packed and insight driven, to really take you on this next step and this deeper journey to find yourself as a mother and the woman inside of the mother. So I'm really excited to roll this out and work with more women.
Yeah, that sounds like an amazing program. So, how can people find you to get on your wait list?
So my website is centeredwithsarah.com. And if you go to centeredwithsarah.com/quiz, you can take my quiz and find out which area is it that you need to take a first step in and focus on, so that you're not getting overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, I have so much work to do. I'll give you really specific action and support for which area do you want to focus on first, and move from there. So centerwithsarah.com/quiz will be the first step. And then you can connect with me more through that. And my friend and I, Abby, we are hosting a mom summit on August 31st. And so if you would like to sign up for that, we will have that up, and it's going to be centerwithsarah.com/summit. And so if you schedule there, it's going to be a live stream of 8 of us, and all experts, all mothers, focusing on different areas of your motherhood journey. And these areas are often overlooked, but very crucial for us as women, and, to be better mothers and meet our needs. So we're going to spend a couple hours doing that. We have sponsors and giveaways, and it's going to be this really dynamic, enriching time. So that's another way that people can connect and start hearing about these ways to make motherhood a little bit easier, if that's possible.
That sounds amazing. That sounds like a great summit. I will be sure to put all those information on the show notes for today's episode. I'm glad you are here today to talk to us about all these amazing, valuable information on the motherhood journey. I hope to have you on here again soon if you're willing to come back.
Yes, I'd love to. Yes.
I love it. Thank you. And thank you again for being here.
Thank you, Grace.
If you resonate at all with the stories on this podcast, and you're thinking about a change in your current situation, in your career, in your relationship, or maybe even in yourself, what's holding you back from taking the first step? Find out by taking the What's Your Biggest Self-Sabotage quiz that you can find on my website at mariagracewolf.com. Until next time, stay kind and own your journey. Thank you again for your time today. If you enjoyed this podcast, please be sure to hit subscribe, rate, and review. I would so appreciate it. The high rate and reviews will help others find the podcast so we can amplify, normalize, and break the mental health stigma. This podcast is designed to provide accurate and authoritative information in regards to the subject matter covered. This is given with the understanding that neither the host or the guest are providing legal, mental health, or other professional information. If you need a professional, you should find one. This podcast does not substitute for personal professional services.